Right now, something you're not thinking about is sitting a few feet from your bed in the dark. Relax. For you, it's nothing. But for almost every human who ever lived, it was real, and it visited nearly every single one of them at least once. We'll get to what it is. But first, you need to understand the world it lived in. For 99% of the time, our species has existed. When the sun went down, there was no light switch, no phone glow, no street lamp leaking through the blinds. There was only black, total and complete. The kind you have probably never actually experienced. So, what did people do for hundreds of thousands of nights trapped inside that black? The honest answer isn't campfires and bedtime stories. It's stranger than that, and parts of it are almost too unsettling to say out loud. Start with the obvious problem. You would not have survived an ancient night, and it has nothing to do with strength. It's your eyes. Predators like lions and hyenas have a mirror-like layer behind their retinas called the tapetum lucidum, which bounces light back through the eye a second time. That's why their eyes flash in headlights, and why they could see you clearly on a night you couldn't see your own hand. Humans never evolved that layer. Not once in millions of years, which means for your entire ancestral line, every single night flipped every advantage in the other direction. They could see you. You could not see them. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer groups today have documented something blunt and consistent. The people who wander off from camp after dark are the ones who don't come back. Night wasn't rest. Night was a test, run every single evening, with the same stakes every time. But here's what's stranger, and this is the part almost nobody talks about. The thing your ancestors feared most at night wasn't outside the camp, it was inside their own bodies. Across cultures with no contact with each other, separated by oceans and thousands of years, people described the exact same experience. Waking in the dark, fully conscious, completely unable to move, certain that something was in the room. In Newfoundland, they called it the old hag. In Japan, kanashibari. In parts of West Africa and the Caribbean, a night presence that sat on the sleeper's chest until they could breathe again. Folklorist David Hufford spent years documenting these accounts in the 1980s and found the descriptions were almost identical, down to the weight on the chest and the shape standing at the foot of the bed, in cultures that had never spoken to each other. Modern science calls it sleep paralysis, a glitch between the dreaming brain and the waking body. But for nearly all of human history, there was no science to explain it. There was just the dark and the same terrifying visitor showing up in bedrooms on every continent on Earth. So if the dark itself was dangerous and something inside your own sleep couldn't be trusted either, how did anyone actually make it to morning? Not with weapons, with a system one your body may still be quietly running tonight. In 2017, biological anthropologist David Sampson tracked the Hadza, a hunter-gatherer community in Tanzania, using sensors that recorded exactly when each adult in camp was awake through the night. What he found broke the assumption he walked in with. At almost no point during the night was the entire camp asleep at once. Someone, somewhere was awake nearly every minute, with no schedule, no assigned shift, no conversation about who takes first watch. Sampson called it a natural sentinel system. Sleep staggered across a group like the camp itself was one organism, taking turns closing its eyes. The 3 a.m. wakefulness we now call insomnia, and treat like a disorder might not be broken at all. It might be the oldest job your body remembers how to do. There was a second reason bodies stayed close together at night, and it had nothing to do with fear. Cold. Without a fire built high enough to survive till dawn, body heat was the only heating system anyone had. One body alone loses it fast. People slept stacked together, adults and children in overlapping piles, sharing warmth like a litter of animals. The private bedroom, one person, one bed, sealed behind a door, is barely a few hundred years old for most of the world. Housing historians point out that for nearly all of human history, sleeping alone wouldn't have looked like comfort to your ancestors. It would have looked like a punishment, or a death sentence. And even the timing of all this wasn't left to guesswork. The same research team that tracked Hadza sleep found their sleep timing shifted with the lunar cycle, later bedtimes, and shorter sleep near a full moon, earlier bedtimes, and longer sleep near a new moon. Moonlight meant visibility. Visibility meant safety. And activity stretched later almost on command, no one deciding it consciously. Some researchers suspect this is the leftover reason certain people still sleep worse under a full moon today. a body still checking the sky for permission before it lets you rest. But the waking hours in the middle of the night weren't only spent on watch or waiting out fear. Across dozens of unrelated oral cultures, from the Amazon to Aboriginal Australia to the Kalahari, dreams weren't dismissed as noise. They were treated as information, messages from ancestors, journeys the sleeper actually took somewhere real. Someone waking from a vivid dream was often asked to tell it to the whole group by morning. A dream about a place could shape where the camp hunted next. A dream about a person could change how that person was treated. Your ancestors had no journals, no therapists, no apps. They had each other, and a shared belief that whatever visited them in the dark, good or terrifying, actually meant something. The sky above them carried the same weight. Researchers studying Aboriginal Australian songlines, oral paths of story and song stretching thousands of kilometers, have found many of them encode real survival information: where water sits, when animals migrate, which routes are safe, all of it stitched into constellations and the stories told about them. A star pattern wasn't decoration. It was a filing system that outlived every person who ever used it, passed mouth to mouth for thousands of years without a single word written down. So when you picture what ancient humans did at night, forget the calm image of a family asleep around glowing coals. The truth is louder than that. Someone was always awake, watching. Something occasionally sat at the foot of the bed. And everyone, everywhere, agreed on what it felt like. Bodies were stacked together for warmth. The moon was quietly deciding how long the night would run. Dreams were being carried into daylight as evidence. And the stars were holding a library that never needed batteries, never crashed, never went dark. Tonight, you'll probably fall asleep with a screen still warm in your hand, in a room where true darkness never actually arrives anymore. But somewhere underneath all of it, an older system is still installed. The one that used to keep watch, read the moon, and wait out whatever sat in the dark until morning came. You don't need it the way they did. Most nights it stays quiet, but every so often you wake at 3 a.m. for no reason at all, heart already racing before your mind catches up. And for just a second before you fall back asleep, something very old in you is still checking the room.